Have you ever just felt that invisible pull towards certain people? Or, that hidden force that seems to shape your day-to-day experiences? Well, today, we're going to uncover the ancient architecture of our lives, the fundamental building blocks that actually define our reality and even our relationships.
I mean, really think about it for a second. Your friends, your coworkers, the groups you just kind of naturally drift towards, what is that invisible force that pulls you all together? We might call it chemistry or vibe, but what if the answer is way older and way deeper than we ever imagined?
So get this, a text from over 2,500 years ago has a surprisingly direct answer. In the Saṃyutta Nikaya, there's this Pali verse that says, Dhātusaṃyutta saṃyutta, and what that means is, beings associate and come together by element. This suggests that our connections aren't random at all. Nope, they're governed by the very elements we're made of. So what in the world are these elements?
Okay, so this brings us to our first huge idea, the principle that like attracts like. And we're not just talking about hobbies or shared interests here. The source text suggests this is a deep, underlying law of nature that explains exactly how we form our social worlds.
And this principle is seen as totally timeless. It worked in the past, it's working right now, and it'll work in the future. The text says that people with a low disposition, those with more negative or unwholesome tendencies, they will naturally find each other and cluster together. And in the exact same way, people with a good disposition, those with positive, wholesome tendencies, they'll find their people too. It's almost like a fundamental law of social physics.
So that begs the really big question, right? What exactly are these elements, or a dhātu, as they're called in Pali? Are we talking about earth, wind, and fire? Well, it's actually a little more intricate and a lot more personal than that.
The term dhātu refers to the fundamental components of our actual, lived experience. So these aren't just physical things. They're the basic building blocks of everything we see, hear, taste, touch, and even think. In a nutshell, they're the raw data of reality itself.
And this slide illustrates it perfectly. The source material breaks them down into these neat little pairs. On one side, you have our internal elements, our six senses, and yep, that includes the mind, which perceives thoughts and ideas. Then, on the other side, you have the external elements, everything those senses can possibly perceive, the eye and a form, the ear and a sound, the mind and an idea. Together, these pairs form the complete basis for every single moment of our conscious experience. It's that simple and that profound.
All right, let's see how this all connects. Because the moment one of our internal elements makes contact with an external one, the second you see something or hear a sound, it kicks off this predictable chain reaction inside the mind.
And this is absolutely crucial to understand. This is a one-way street. The external elements, the sights, sounds, and smells of the world, they're the starting point. They are what give rise to our perceptions, our thoughts, our feelings. Our mental world doesn't create the raw data, it responds to it.
And here's exactly how that domino effect plays out. It all starts with an element. Let's say your eyes see a form, a delicious-looking cake. Boom. That triggers perception. You recognize it. That's a cake. Then comes intention, a thought. I wonder what that tastes like. This can quickly lead to desire, a simple, I want it. And if you don't check it, that desire can intensify into passion, a burning craving like, I must have that. And finally, that passion drives the quest. You actively go and get the cake. See that? A simple sight has just led all the way to a determined action.
But here's the twist. That initial spark, the nature of the element that starts the whole chain reaction, it determines everything that follows. And it can send us down one of two very, very different paths.
So first, you've got the unwholesome path. This whole process gets kicked off by elements rooted in sensuality, ill will, or cruelty. Think of a thought born from greed or anger. That chain reaction inevitably leads to harmful actions. And the end result? It's always suffering and inner turmoil. Always. But then, on the flip side, we have the wholesome path. This journey is sparked by totally different elements. Elements of renunciation or just letting go, of goodwill and of non-cruelty. So when a thought is rooted in kindness or generosity or compassion, it sets off a positive chain reaction. This leads to right action, and the result isn't agitation, it's a state of deep peace and genuine happiness.
The source material uses this incredibly powerful metaphor to really drive this point home. It says an unwholesome thought is like a lit torch thrown into a pile of dry grass. If you don't stamp it out immediately, it will just erupt into a wildfire of suffering that completely consumes you. It just highlights how urgent it is to be mindful of where our thoughts actually begin. Okay, so if we're constantly being influenced by these elements and these chain reactions, is there a way out? I mean, how do we stop being puppets on a string and start mastering the system? Well, the texts lay out a clear 3-step path to freedom.
First things first, you have to see the gratification. You have to be brutally honest with yourself and just acknowledge the pleasure or enjoyment you get from something. Why are you drawn to that cake or that little bit of gossip? You have to clearly see the sweetness you're chasing before you can do anything else about it.
Next, you have to see the danger, the drawback. That gratification, it's always temporary. The cake gets eaten, the pleasure fades. Chasing satisfaction from things that are inherently impermanent, that are always changing, is just a recipe for disappointment. Recognizing this unreliability is the absolute crucial second step.
And finally, with that understanding in place, you can realize the escape. And this is the most profound part. The escape isn't about finding a better, more permanent pleasure. The true escape is abandoning the craving itself. Freedom is found not in getting what you want, but in freeing yourself from the wanting.
And that really brings us to the final takeaway. The path to freedom from suffering isn't about changing the world or its elements. It's about changing our relationship to them. By understanding this whole system, from attraction to reaction to release, we can fundamentally change our experience of reality itself. So the question then isn't what elements you're surrounded by, but how you choose to engage with them.